Live from Town Square Towers at the heart of the Jersey Shore. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. Get up, get out, do something. Join the conversation. 732-505-1160. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Listen online at WOBMAM.com.
Hey, welcome back. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. 6:07 Tuesday, November 22nd. 38 degrees, getting up to 46 today. WOBM AM 1160, 1310 News Talk Radio. Streaming live on the Radio Pup app at WOBMAM.com. 732-505-1160. When I think of the holidays, I'll tell you what I think of. I think of fruitcake. I think of turkey. I think of sleigh bells. And I think of holiday music and doing good things for those in need. And nobody to talk better on that than Tim McCloone, talking about Holiday Express. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, how was everything with you, Jeremy? But really, fruitcake? I mean, really?
You know what? We were at the supermarket last night, and literally one of the kids picked up fruitcake and was like, and we're like, no, we don't really do that. So
it's one of the most frightening food items in the history of the world.
It is no doubt. But come on, it's part of every important holiday movie out there. So why don't you give folks the overview? What is Holiday Express all about?
Well, we're amazingly enough to me in our 24th year. Back in the 1990s, I worked for the New Jersey Nets then and the NBA. And on Christmas Eve in 1991, I think it was, one of the players decided he wanted to do a Feed the Homeless program in Newark. And we went down and did it. And there were about 500 people there literally on Christmas Eve. And I found it to be really moving, but there was no music in the building. And it was just this kind of grim circumstance where there was food and there were gifts, but everyone just sort of sat there. And so, as I say, because I'm a genius, I decided next year that I would bring back a boom box. So, but I was really turned on by the whole experience. And one of the other owners of the Nets was too. And we kind of talked about it over the course of the year. And it's like, do you want to do that again next year? And before you knew it, next year came around. And so we went down there, and I'm there with a boombox playing Johnny Mathis, holiday songs, right, and Nat King Cole or whatever. And it just occurred to me that if you had live music there, that it would be a much more festive circumstance. And so I started talking about it to my musician friends, because I've been playing music since I was a little kid, and a whole bunch of them thought it was a great idea too. So we met at our then restaurant, the Rum Runner in Seabright, on November 15th, and 17 musicians showed up. And I really thought it was going to be like 3, And so I said to them, well, if we're going to go to the trouble to learn this much music, do you want to do more than one event? And everybody was okay with it. And I started looking around, and we ended up going to 10 places that first year. And we thought how tired we were. But when the bus pulled in on Christmas Eve, when we came back from Newark, it was the same place again. But this time we had a live band. There was a lot of crying and a lot of hugging, and I realized I had tapped into something. And so here we are 24 years later, and this year we're doing 90 events in about 45 days.
Wow.
It's kind of ironic in a way that this Friday, well, not ironic, but it's just emblematic of what the growth of it. This Friday we're playing the town lighting in Red Bank, which was always our first event. To sort of start things off, and we end up with X number of thousands of people in the street, and it's great and all that. It was always our first event. This year it'll be our 31st event. We started back on November 7th, because just to fit everything in. And to really answer your question, Holiday Express, what it really is, what we try to identify, and Amy Robinson, who runs our office, does this for us. We try to find places that there's 2 ways to get Holiday Express to come to you. And one is if we're not there, you get little or no attention at holiday time. And those are like the long-term residential psychiatric facilities and homeless shelters, soup kitchens, AIDS hospices, places like that. Or the other way you get us is if the need is so great, we don't care if you're getting a lot of attention at holiday time. And those are mostly for the severely disabled children and young adults that we see. And we bring the whole Megillah to it, that it's not just a band, which is what a lot of people think is Holiday Express is just a band, but we bring a room full of volunteers, and we decorate the place and throw the biggest holiday party you can imagine. And places like Jersey Mike's and the Windmill and Joe Leone, who you mentioned earlier,
yep,
and Merrymakers and my own restaurants, we donate the food, and we have gifts that we've accumulated throughout the year. The gifts are really a gift bag. It's a beautiful tote bag that they get now, and so everybody gets gifts and the whole thing. And it's just the biggest holiday party you can possibly imagine.
Wow, that's amazing. Now,
and that's the story.
Now, my first question is, which New Jersey net was it? So can I take two guesses?
Okay.
All right, I'm going to take two guesses. My first guess would be Derek Coleman.
You know, that wouldn't have been a bad guess, except Derek was from Detroit.
Oh,
So
see
this
now.
was local.
I'm not thinking right, am I? So
It's a local.
So maybe Tate George.
How did you know that?
That was good, right?
That's a really good guess because it was, in fact, Tate George, and things didn't end well for Tate George.
Well, as far as his basketball career.
Yes, but also he ended up in trouble with the law.
Oh, I didn't know that. I know he hit one big shot in his college career, and that pretty much catapulted him into the NBA.
That was his $1 million shot.
That's right.
It turned out
That's
easy
right.
for me to say, but as it turned out, he was not an NBA quality player. But
No, never was. But I guess he will forever hold a place in your heart, right?
You know, I'll tell you what, he was a really good-natured person. I mean, what he got in trouble for was the proverbial white-collar crime. It was some sort of a financial boondoggle of some sort. But he was. I will always speak well of him because he was, which I just did not do. But I will almost always speak well of him. Now, it was great that he really ignited the thing, and it was such a good thing for a young guy in the NBA to be thinking that way.
Right.
You know, I mean, when you give the image that they usually, unfortunately, are projected, he was tremendous. I can't imagine my life what it would have been like had that not happened. Actually, I've never really thought of it till this moment.
Right.
But,
now, how do you go about because this is not. I know you say you do 90 shows in 45 days, but this is a year-round operation, right? This is not like this is not like a pop-up Christmas store, right?
I mean, it used to be. It used to be that we'd get around to the summer, and we better start thinking about this and organizing it. Now we have a year-round office because the logistical side of this alone. To have because one of the things when we call it Holiday Express, the reason that name was picked, and by the way, the name that lost out to Holiday Express was the Traveling Jingleberries.
Oh my goodness!
Which would have been a really bad idea. The Traveling Wilburys were popular at the time.
Yeah, and Jingleberry sounds. Well, we'll move along. It doesn't flow right. Doesn't flow right.
But at any rate, the logistical side of this is it's overwhelming. The holiday refers to the fact that, and I am all about being politically correct, by the way. I mean, for the number of people, including our next president, who criticize political correctness, to my mind, what it's really about is taking a moment to consider other people's feelings. And what's wrong with that, And so it was holiday, not Christmas, because we are just... for whatever people, I tell people at every event we do, whether they celebrate Christmas or Kwanzaa or Hanukkah or they just like being with their friends, that's what we're about.
Right.
We're not selling any kind of religious experience. But the other part of it, the express part, was really the more important part. My original envisionment of this was that we would maybe play in a local high school and we would have groups come to us who wanted to see a free holiday show, ignoring the fact that probably the biggest problem that many, many people on the lower economic status in our society have is actually transportation. And for many of them, they actually physically can't get other places. So Holiday Express goes to them. Every once in a while, we will go to some sort of a, if you will, neutral site that's picked. And when you watch all the conveyances that come in there and how long it takes them to unload and load people who are, mostly you wouldn't even call them wheelchairs because the contraptions are so complex to move people around. So we go to them, and
right.
That is the key issue of the whole thing. Once we learned a lot those first couple of years, that's for sure.
Right.
We mostly learned what we didn't know.
Hey, Tim, we're up against a break. When we come back, can we talk a little bit about your background, because you really have. It's an amazing path to where you are today personally. As I look kind of at your biography, I'm trying to figure out how you end up as a guy with 12 restaurants. Can we talk about that when we get back?
Well, if you insist on talking about me. Okay.
Less, but enough about me. Let's talk about me. Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin, Tim McCloone, Holiday Express. Back after this.
Get more Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin at our website, WOBMAM.com. News Talk Radio, WOBM AM 1160 and 1310.
All right, welcome back. Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin. Tim, I want to get this out of the way because I feel like it's the 800-pound gorilla here, Tim McCloone from Holiday Express. It's guys like you that guys like me have to try and find problems with, because when I look at your background, so Harvard, right? An athlete, a musician, 12 restaurants. I mean, really? Come on. I mean, you were All-American track and field, right? Then you were a sports announcer, right? I mean, I got this gig on WOBM, but it's not exactly the same thing, right? Broadcast work for the Olympic trials, part of the Emmy Award-winning broadcast team for the New York and Los Angeles marathons. And you were so cool that you actually were jogging alongside runners, right, while you were interviewing them.
Well, what I've always said about that part of it is if it was that hard to do, I couldn't have done it.
Yeah, but I even honestly thinking about that, I'm a little out of breath. So tell me how all of that, and you know, working for the Nets and then doing PA announcing, et cetera, and next thing you know, how do you end up in the restaurant business?
Well, the two are sort of disconnected, but I understand what you're saying. I mean, I have had a really varied work career. But it was all about entertainment. I mean, when you come right down to it, I mean, when I was in high school and college, my life was totally obsessed with running. That's what I wanted to be. And, you know, I was pretty good at it. My daily, I still try to run every day. And my daily mantra now is I can't believe I was ever any good at this. I mean, how the hell did I do that? But everything kind of tipped the one into the next, you know. I think if I had one positive quality about me, and my parents were really great about this in terms of supporting me, was that I was not fearful of taking on I wouldn't call them adventures, but if you know what I mean, it's just kind of like when opportunities came up, I wasn't fearful,
right,
and I would take chances. And so what ended up happening was with the whole running thing was, I guess I was something of a big mouth about it. You know, I would have opinions,
right.
And when you have opinions about things, if you're saying, well, this thing isn't being done the way I think it should be done, well, you better be ready to step up and do it yourself, or you have to shut up. You know, it's
right.
But the restaurant thing happened alongside of it. I was really a full-time working musician, and I still play. I mean, if people ask me today what I do for a living, I'd tell them I'm an entertainer. You know, the restaurant deal was. I won't give you the long story of it, but basically I was playing at a place, the Rum Runner in Seabright, when I was a lot younger, and and the place was empty, and it was right on the river, had a beautiful view, and I said to the owner on the way out the door, I said, you know, if you ever wanted to sell this place, I'd be interested. Meanwhile, I truthfully was making $200 and $300 a week.
Right.
You know, I'm going to buy this place, right? And what ended up happening was a couple of years later, friends of mine went in there, asked him the same question, whether he'd be interested in selling, and he said to them, well, I'm going to sell it to Tim McCloone. Why he got that idea. So we get in touch, and he says to me, this was back in 1986 into 87, and the tax law was about to change dramatically. They were going to really, double or triple capital gains taxes.
Right.
So if you were going to sell anything, you had to sell it before New Year's Eve of 1986 into 87. And he said to me, if you give me $1 million by January 1st, I'll sell it to you. I could have sworn he said, if you give me $10 bazillion.
Right, sure. What was the difference, right?
But I found some friends, and we just I mortgaged my home and did everything you have to do. And I literally was in the lawyer's office on New Year's Eve wearing a tuxedo because I was about to play the opening of the Oyster Point Hotel in Red Bank,
right, with
my band. And I bought the restaurant, you know, with these friends of mine. And so that sort of started the journey. But we only had the one restaurant really for about 17 years. And it was only when Pier Village came around in Longbridge that I started looking around, because my child, I have 4 kids, but the one daughter was approaching college age, and I knew she wasn't going to be going to the college of her choice based on what was going on in Seabright, New Jersey. So we looked for a second opportunity, and what ended up happening then, we went down to Asbury Park, and we started growing. We actually have 11 places, and it was just the idea that you kind of learned how to do it. and I have great people that work in my office: Tim McMahon, Christy Hensel, Lauren Cotu, my wife, and now I'm not mentioning everybody. And they were very entrepreneurial as a group, and we just started looking for opportunities. And in actuality, what happened was with the economy kind of turning down, it actually gives you more opportunities to do things.
Sure.
And again, and we haven't been successful every place we've gone, believe me. It's been a struggle in some ways, but we were very fortunate to have great people that work for us. And, people ask me all the time, how do you do so many things that you do? And I tell them, well, I don't, in actuality, because it's the people that work for you that really enable. I like to take all the credit. Even Holiday Express, it's a terrific thing, but we have 500 adult volunteers and a full-time office that actually makes that happen.
Right.
The first few years, I was literally doing everything, and now, like a lot of things, we're in our 24th year. I'm back in the band. It's like, when are we playing? Where do I have to go? And I'll be there.
Very cool. So when we come back, what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of go through a couple of the upcoming events that you want to kind of promote.
Sure.
And then we give you our Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin magic wand so you can make a difference, kind of wave your wand and do something in the world. I'm sure you have some ideas there. And then we'll give folks all the contact information or how they could figure out how to contribute, okay?
That's great.
Cool. Tim McCloone, you know what? I can't even label him because there's just so many things going on. So we're just going to say Holiday Express because 'tis the season. Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin back after this.
The news never stops at WOBMAM.com. Get the latest from WOBM News, the Town Square, New Jersey News Network, and Fox News Radio. Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin, News Talk Radio, WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Live from the Jersey Shore to the world. Get up, get out, do something. Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin. Take the show wherever you go. Download the free Radio Pup app for your smartphone or tablet. Join the conversation. 732-505-1160. News Talk Radio, WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Listen online at WOBMAM.com.
Hey, welcome back. Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin, 6:33, Tuesday, November 22nd, 33 degrees, getting up to 46 today. WOBM AM 1160, 1310, News Talk Radio. Stream live on the Radio Pup app and WOBMAM.com. 732-505-1160 to join the conversation. We are joined by Tim McCloone. We are talking Holiday Express. Tim, what kind of events do we have coming up? What are you kind of most looking forward to, or what do you think folks should know about?
Well, we only in the 90 events we do, we only do a couple for the public. As I said, we'll be in Red Bank this Friday night around 7 o'clock to light the town and Santa's arrival and all that. But that's highly unusual for us. We do have 2 theater shows. We'll be at the Count Basie Theater on December 19 and 20. And we, generally speaking, sell out that show. And that's basically how we raise a whole bunch of the money. It costs us over $1 million to do this every year. But more indicative of what we do is what we're doing today. I'll be getting on a bus a little bit later this morning, and we're going to 2 places today. And one of them is called Woodbine, and it's a long-term residential psychiatric facility. And it's just for men who can't be integrated with women. And it's one of the first places we ever went to. And I will say that for people who were just like everybody else, the first time we went, it was kind of a frightening experience to see people in such a state, and it also got me incredibly impressed with the work of social workers and therapists and the people that work with this population every day. It's astonishing what they do. And for those of us who are out in the alleged real world and have no idea that this goes on, it was quite a wake-up call. And after we leave there, we're going to a place called Ancora, which is probably, in a sense, a more notorious location because they deal with the criminally insane there as well as people who just have social issues. It's a really broad cross-section. It's men and women.
Right.
And again, how they do that job, I don't know. We're down there for a couple of hours a year, and that's it. And I've always described us as kind of like bad aunts and uncles. We go wherever we go, and we play loud music, and we really stir everybody up, and then we're like, hey, look what time it is. I got to go.
Right.
But you can't help but be incredibly impressed with what goes on in these facilities. They're hidden away, and they're far from us geographically as well as sociologically. I mean, many of these people never really see the light of day, not being in prison, but you know what I mean. They're not out in general public, and it's just, you know, it's so interesting. In the beginning of Holiday Express, the first few years, I'll be honest with you, I was thinking, well, this is a great thing we're doing, and aren't we nice people, you know? And making up for past sins. But then the deeper I got into it, the more I realized that, you know, the old saying, it's better to give than receive. It is so true. We receive like crazy. I mean, we're a 100% volunteer organization with the exception of just a few people that work in our office, and nobody there is getting rich either. And it's a remarkable thing that everybody volunteers their time for this. But I've always said my job is to make sure that the volunteers get paid, and the getting paid is you get back in the bus, and you just sit back and you say, boy, I'm glad I was here today. Right.
And just so we put it in perspective, I mean, you're raising, you know, somewhere around $1 million a year. For these causes, and that doesn't really begin to kind of I don't believe that really kind of tells the whole story, because you guys are doing, you know, you're doing work in every one of these facilities and every one of these spots you're going to, of kind of really spreading holiday cheer to folks that don't have a lot of holiday cheer to look forward to.
Yeah, I mean that was the initial purpose of doing it, was not to we're not, you know, curing diseases or building buildings, or we don't have the resources to do any of that. What we do have the resources to do is basically get out there and tell people we care about them, and that was really the bottom line of this. It used to really worry me because we would go places for a couple of hours, you know, and you know we're there 2.5, 3 hours, and we do this big party, and it's all great. But I kept thinking, well, you know, does it really matter? Does it really last? And then we were told by all the people we go to visit, by their care workers, that, yeah, it does matter, and that they talk about us for a month before we get there, and the excitement builds, and then after we leave, they argue about my bad singing, and, you know, what the heck? I thought you said
Come
this was
on now, listen.
This was a high-quality show.
I saw you guys last year at the Basie, and it was,
you did?
Yeah, it was fantastic, and, you know, we had the Grinch visit us earlier this year. Here at the radio station, and you know, great group of volunteers and great group of folks you got.
I'll tell you something. It's a little disturbing to me that the Grinch has gotten extremely popular.
Yeah, well, listen, it's I don't know. I know you've done a lot of things, Tim, but I don't know how much you want to walk around in that Grinch costume. I don't know. I don't know that sounds like the sexiest of jobs there. So
wait a second, that's a costume?
Exactly. Tim, it's that time now where we give you the magic wand, the pixie dust, the fairy dust, the ability just to wiggle your nose and make something happen in the world. You're doing so much every day, but what would you do if you could just kind of like wave that wand and make an impact?
Wow, what the heck kind of a question is that, Jeremy?
We actually give it to you. See, that's the one where we see if you actually read all the information we gave you before you come on.
I actually did. You know. And first of all, before I say anything, thanks for taking the time to talk about this. It makes a big difference to us, and you know, it's important that people know. The magic wand would be that people, you know, I think that people find out about things like where we go when it happens in their own life. And I think virtually every person listening to us right now, and it probably goes for you, and it definitely goes for me too, we all have somebody in our life that gets themselves into an extreme circumstance. I happen to have a cerebral palsy nephew, and I would not have had the doors open to me into this world had it not been for him. And it's a shame it takes that. But if people understood that there is this social strata that's so far below the surface that people do not see, and if they could open up their hearts to go volunteer in these places or just go visit them or support them financially, whatever, it would make a big difference in the world. And it's so interesting what's happened to us, because we had the same fears everybody did when we walked into some places. There's a place called New Lisbon. It's another long-term residential psychiatric facility. And I went there, and the room was filled with people wearing helmets, adult diapers, very little personal hygiene, and this staff of people just scrambling to, you know, hold it together. And we were absolutely frightened. I'm looking at my watch saying, okay, another 15 minutes and we're out of here. And now, all these years later, I can't wait to go there and see some of the same people we see every year.
Right.
It got rid of all my fear. And I find myself, when I'm on the boardwalk near one of my restaurants or something, and I see someone coming along in a wheelchair or whatever, I'm kind of compelled to go over and say hello.
Right.
it's what happens when you lose your fear. And I would hope that people would open their hearts up in that way.
Certainly, totally changes your perspective. Running a foundation that like I do, I see that so many of the same things every day, and it's so much easier to turn a blind eye and not pay attention to it and to just avoid it altogether. But it really is much more rewarding to actually go and understand it and to help do something about it.
Well, I've always said most of the people in Holiday Express are of very modest means themselves. And yet they find in them, they'll take some of their annual vacation days and use them for us, which I think is startling. But the reason they do it is that it feels good to do it, and they know they're doing the right thing. It's really great.
Sure. Tim, where could folks learn more about Holiday Express and all the things you guys are doing?
Fortunately, it's really easy. It's just holidayexpress.org. And they want to read more about my bio. It's in there.
Well, there you go. Tim McCloone. Tim, thank you for all you do at the Jersey Shore. And, you're making an impact in so many different ways. And really, we are blessed to have you among us here.
Well, I don't know about that, but apparently you're making a difference, too. Good luck with the show. That's great.
We all try and do our part. So, Tim McCloone, thank you so much, and have a great Thanksgiving. All right, back with more Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin right after this.